Hi, this is Dr. Toni with another episode of Strain Paradox, and I'm glad to be on Facebook Live today. And today I have a very, very special guest, Delano Davis, and he's going to talk about some things that are important to our community, and that's our financial mindset. And we're going to have another show coming up soon that we're going to talk about other aspects of our financial mindset. But today, specifically, Delano is with NYLIFE, and he has done amazing work with educating small businesses and also bringing collaboration within communities of color. So I am glad today to introduce to you Delano Davis. I do consider him a friend and a colleague. So I'm just going to give you an opportunity to kind of tell us what you do and why you do what you
do. Yeah, I appreciate you. First off, I appreciate you having me, Dr. Toni. It's an honor to be on the show. I love what you're doing here. It's a great platform. But as you mentioned, yes, so my name's Delano Davis. I run a financial practice with NYLIFE, and I've been doing so for 4 years now. As a matter of fact, it's been an anniversary just came up. We've been, I actually just upgraded my status, so to speak. So
congrats.
It's great accomplishments, and it's a wonderful bridge to cross over. But really what I'm doing is working with my clients and always trying to figure out their goals. One of the main goals and things that we're always talking about is taxes. A lot of the times we're always trying to be cognizant of Uncle Sam. And of course, we're all working hard, but we would hopefully like to make work optional one day. So that's really my two goals for my clients: to avoid Uncle Sam and hopefully make work optional. And that's what I do with a lot of business owners, families, and it really all starts with education and goal setting, goal planning,
That's what's important. And work optional, I think we will all like that, and that's what we will all achieve. And what's I guess funny to me is a lot of times when people think of work optional, they think of it as do nothing. The point is to be able to work to increase your wealth, to be able to increase your impact on society, have a level of social responsibility and a level of social consciousness. So work optional doesn't mean sit and do nothing, but to the point, I'm figuring that your work gets to work. I mean, your money gets to work for you more than you're working for your money. And I know you do a lot with clients. So what is one of the main things that you tell your clients when they come in, as far as they come to you and they say, I don't really have that much saved. I may or may not have a 401k. I'm just in a new place with this. I see what's going on in the world and I need to do something small now. What can you do?
So the first thing that I'm always telling people is they should have a solid foundation. I can easily equate it to building a house, right? So if you have a house with a crummy foundation, what happens? The whole thing,
it's going to crumble. Yeah,
right, exactly. The whole thing will come tumbling down pretty quickly too. So if you don't have a solid foundation in your life, in your goals, in your financial plan, well, we have to start there. You have to really start with a solid foundation. And oftentimes it is your savings. It is your back end, your protection, your insurances. So that's a great jump off point. It's a great opportunity. And especially nowadays, we have plenty of opportunity for people to kind of take a second, rehash, where are we? Where do we want to be? And how can I create a solid foundation, a solid jump off point, so that way I can capitalize, right?
Right. So, all right. So what age, I guess, should we start? Because, parents were told, as soon as your child is born, and then it's as soon as you think about having a child, you should save. But when you think about most people of color that are, and when I know there are outliers, there are many that are of us that are extremely well to do, and I say us meaning people of color that are extremely well to do, and then there are some that are extremely impoverished. So we do have a full spectrum. But for the average person of color that works, a job, living paycheck to paycheck for at least month to month,
Hmm.
where can they start? Because saving is really hard.
Yeah. The first place, it might sound corny, but the first place, what I would say to start is with your mindset. You have to kind of understand your money first. And so
Right,
the best rule of thumb that I was taught at a young age was to pay yourself first. And a lot of times people, it took me forever to figure out what that even meant. But easy rule of thumb that I always tell parents is they should be educating their children on financial literacy, and you should always educate your child on what to do with a dollar, and then live by that same standard of your dollars.
right,
So I always tell children, don't spend more than 70 cents on your dollar. That's just one basic. You should create rules of thumb, or solid foundations for yourself, so that you can jump off. If you're spending 97 cents of that dollar and you're living paycheck to paycheck, well, you should still develop that mindset and the philosophy and those habits of saving those 3 cents. What you do with those 3 cents, then we can talk about that. But it's developing those habits.
right. And I'm glad you started with talking about what we should do as children, because that was one of the things that I do with my kids. I was really proud of both of my children. They were very, when they were younger, very entrepreneurial
Yeah.
in nature. And I think it comes naturally in my family anyway. My grandfather was an entrepreneur, my mother, I am. And so when my kids were really young, my older son, who's now has a photography business, and he's been in business for going on 4 years, I think, but solid as far as established location and everything. He's going into his second year, but he
Great.
started out with shoveling snow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he did it in a different way. He didn't do the go to door shoveling. Do you want me to shovel your snow off? He did it as when you leave in the morning, you're going to need your car cleaned off and your area cleaned. So if you tell
Yeah.
me what time you leave in the morning, I'll make sure when you come out, your car and your walkway is clean for you.
I love that.
And so he said, I don't want to have that feeling that I'm just walking around begging. So he got to the point where he was getting people scheduling in advance when the snow was coming. And, it got to the point actually where he
Yeah.
had to get other of his friends to help him because he had too many. But that was him saying, I want to earn money. I want to practice this and all of that. And my younger son, he made various carpentry items, chairs, tables, cabinets, things like that. And he did that. So um, I definitely lived the trying to get your children into it early and expressing that they need to save money. And it was, you need to save a percentage and you need to invest a percentage
Hmm.
in something, whether it be yourself or something else. And as a person of faith, it was you need to give a percentage to the church as well. And what I tell people, if you're not in a church, give a percentage to a community or things like that.
Right.
What are some other ways that we could get, still talking about our children, get our children into that financial literacy and that financial mindset a little bit earlier so that they don't end up like us?
Yeah. Well, so I think your son is a great example of thinking outside the box. Just the practice of thinking outside the box and identifying problems where and then allowing solutions where they can be had. I try to do the same thing with my little sister. She's 8, and I always try to instill in her, earn her income, and have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit. Because if she can control and earn her own income, no one will really have to tell her anything. So, for instance, we were at a festival for her school one time, and she had a bunch of lays to wrap around the neck, and she was going to start handing them out. I said, well, see if you can get a quarter or a dollar or anything for it. And she said, okay. And all she did was ask. And she ended up making, $5. And to what you had mentioned, okay, what do we do with these $5? She ended up giving, $1.50 or so to charity, to a classmate of hers who had leukemia.
Oh,
And then she
great.
ended up splitting some of the profits with her teammates who helped pass the lays out. And then she kept, $1.50 or so. It was a great lesson in real life just to be able to see.
Oh,
So if you can do that with your children, or you're with your niece, with your nephew, with the children around you, just to take real world simple examples and thinking outside the box, I think that's huge. But then to be also to apply, okay, a lesson. We're going to save 30 cents here,
right.
give 10 cents to charity, invest maybe 10, and then put 10 into myself. So,
Yeah, and I think it's important to, it's also a sense of power that the kids have too, right?
oh,
They
yeah.
have that sense of, I have my own, I earned it, I figured it
Yeah.
out. And it kind of gives them a little taste of that real world experience.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to, since we talk about taxes, I do want to tell parents that might be listening that, you know, it's, there are tax consequences if your child earns too much, and reporting and all of that. So definitely speak with your tax advisor, speak with your financial professional, all of that, to be able to make sure that you're not causing yourself any tax consequences. But what we're talking about is more small dollar things that are being done for training. I know some of the things that my kids used to do. I think I spent more than they made to bring it into fruition. You got to buy all of the supplies and all of that, and then they end up getting to keep the money. So, but the purpose is in investing in them and investing in
Right.
their learning process, and giving them a safe space really to be able to make mistakes. Like for instance, not charging, or charging too little. What could you have made? Which could you have done? And just having a safe space for those discussions, because I mean, that was something I had in my family. My mother is very entrepreneurial. And like I said, but most families of color, you don't, it's get out and work for someone, not necessarily get out and do something for yourself.
Right.
You have any theories as to why we have that mindset?
Oh, man. We could go down a whole rabbit hole there. Yeah. I
Right,
mean,
I guess.
I'm a big believer that we do have to continue to educate those around us, because our education system, just all around, whether you're white, black, purple, or yellow, it doesn't matter. Our education system really pumps out employees rather than
Right,
business owners. So, when we do have opportunities to put lessons in our children's hand, and our nieces, nephews, little sister's hand, to capitalize on how to be a business owner, I think we have to take those opportunities 100%, because I didn't learn in school. I went all the way through high school, 4 years of college, majored in economics and finance, and I didn't learn anything much about taxes. I might have learned a little bit about money and banking, some history about the stock market, but I never was taught how to save my money properly, or what to do with it when I get it. When should I get into real estate? What do I do when I buy a house? Just
right,
simple little things that we're never actually taught in our education system. So if you're able to, just like yourself as a mother, being a business owner, have, maybe without even realizing it, but just being an example, have instilled in your own children to be business owners.
Yeah, that's important, and I think it also points out some disparities when it comes to what schools you go to. And I can say that because I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and Irvington, New Jersey, mostly low income areas. For a short time, though, I moved to Plainsboro, New Jersey, which is right next to Princeton, New Jersey. So you
Okay.
know how Princeton University is, and that town is very similar in economic status.
Right.
And Plainsboro was a lot smaller, a lot more farmland, things like that. But in that school, in middle school, we actually had a financial class that we attended. Like, we had to learn with the stock market, and we had a faux stock
That's
ticker,
great.
and we had to start a business and think about what the cost associated with the business and really map that out. And we did all of those things. And I was only at that in that area for a couple of years, but it's something that just that year of being in that class, um, it gave me information, and I didn't realize what a privilege that was. That in being in this school district, that I was told, I don't have evidence for it, but I was told that there were only 17 blacks in the district,
Yeah.
17 people of color in the district. I didn't really grasp that if I had stayed in, because I was young, if I had stayed in the area that I was in, I would have never learned this information until when I moved back into Orange, New Jersey, and back into the North New Jersey area, that I started to realize, wait a minute, they aren't teaching this. And I think it's also, we talk about generational wealth, but I think
Yeah.
that's where generational knowledge comes in too, because one way to suppress, and I'm not really talking in this instance about oppressing, but one way to suppress the people is to not give them the information that they need.
Right.
And that's why I really admire the work that you're doing, because you're making sure that people get the information that they need. um, what is something else? And I do want to stay on the topic of kids a little bit, for one more question, but what's something else, that a parent can teach or a caregiver can teach when they themselves don't really know what to do? Because, and I'm saying that because we have a lot of parents right now that are homeschooling.
Yeah.
And I have parents that reach out to me that say, look, I never even got a GED, and they want me to help teach my kids. I didn't even go this far in school. Or
Right.
some that said, I struggled with learning disabilities myself. So we're at an age now where we have some parents teaching that never really don't really have the skills. So how can a parent that is not has not been entrepreneurial, doesn't have the means to save and all of that, how can they kind of give that message to their kids?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in education all the way around and being able to constantly grow and educate yourself, right? So as a parent, it's your duty to continue to be able to know and grow and pass that on to your children. And a lot of people might not like to say this, but YouTube University is a real thing. You
Yeah, it
know,
is.
you can really learn so much, again, so much on YouTube, but there's a ton of knowledge, there's a ton of free information. But the best information is always the hardest to come by, is what I've noticed. So
Right. Most definitely.
I'm always a proponent of asking the pros. Ask the pros around you, whether it be a friend, family member who knows a pro like yourself, who knows a pro like a real estate person, a mortgage person, a real estate investor, a financial advisor. Ask the pros. But then the most basic is to learn from other successful people. And the way that I usually try to do that is by soaking up reading. I try to read as many books as I can. And one of the most basic and one of the best reads that you can have is by, I believe it's by George S. Clayton. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And it's a very simple read that I would
And
actually recommend
what is
parents
the?
read to their
I'm just
kids.
gonna put it in the chat. What's the name of it?
It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Okay.
I believe it's called The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clayson. And what it does is it takes you along and it tells you, it's a story about how a young man became the richest man in the ancient city of Babylon, right? And just the principles that he lived by, that he taught his peers around him, and how he came to be where he was at. And it's just told in a very basic, simple story that children would actually soak up. I gave my little sister a copy, as a matter of fact, for her birthday, which she might not have been the best birthday present, but she'll appreciate it. But I would tell you, from a parent's perspective, especially, that book and teaching those lessons and principles and even breaking it down simpler for your children
Right.
is is,
Right.
is a great first step to start at.
Yeah, I mean that's where we get the saying, knowledge is power, right?
Oh yeah,
And I believe that it provides us with an opportunity to learn from our kids, learn with our kids as well. If we don't know and there's a book like that, then have a book club with your kids where you read it. You read a section, you discuss it, read another section, discuss
right,
it. A lot of times kids don't realize that you're learning with them. They think that you're guiding them and things like that. But the point is to really be able to get to the point where you're sharing that knowledge and you're sharing that wisdom in a way that they'll absorb it. So
exactly.
it's okay. I want to tell other parents it's okay if you don't know.
Yeah,
Learn together, read
absolutely.
together and read articles. I know one family that one of the things that they do with each other is that they when they read, various things, they have to write some little like paragraph or things like that.
Okay.
I used to let my kids, I said, oh, we'll all, read something or we'll all do something and then we'll do a creative presentation to each other. So one might do a PowerPoint, one might do a dance, which would always be weird, or, make a picture or whatever. Everything doesn't have to be just school. There are so many ways that the parent and the child can learn at the same time. And I just know that sometimes as parents, we feel like because we're not where we need to be yet, how can we teach our kids? So you've done great to give us some examples of what we can do with our kids. So let's shift this now to talk about ourselves and our businesses because I do want to kind of give my disclaimer as I am not one of those people that believe everybody on the planet is an entrepreneur and can run a business.
Yeah.
Some people just don't have the focus or there are different skill sets that we each have. Not everyone can learn the skill set of being a leader. Everyone can learn the skill set, but it's not always somebody's best. There are people that are really good at implementation, but not good at facilitation. There are good people that are good at building, but not good at running. So kind of know what your personality is. But in your space, what are some of the issues that you find with entrepreneurs?
Well, it's actually taking that time to sit down. Well, you know what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is they have so many other things going on, and all the wheels are turning at 100 miles an hour that oftentimes it almost gets difficult to schedule in time to plan from a personal perspective about finances. Okay, I understand from a business perspective, I want to, maybe I'm a young startup, tech startup, and I want to, make 100,000, make 1 million, and then sell. Well,
Right.
oftentimes what happens is you don't actually plan for yourself. And then what do I actually do with this money? It just doesn't happen. For a lot of business owners, they're running so fast all the time that they don't have someone to help them see that, well, the business is more than just the bottom line. A lot of the times what business owners are doing is actually, instead of even working in, they're more so working in their business rather than on their business. So what I try to do is come in, take that 1,000-foot view, take a step back, and have that longer term mindset, that longer term vision. Okay, again, where are we now versus where do you want to be, and how can we get there incrementally? A lot of the times that really just doesn't happen.
Right. Now you said you glossed by it, but you really made just like a really powerful statement. Like people work in their business rather than on their business.
It's true.
And can you expound on that? Because I see the same thing. I think people see themselves as their own employees rather than the person that's leading and looking at the vision of where the business has to go. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm guilty of it myself at times as well. Every time, I kind of have to reset every quarter or so, and kind of figure out where am I, because what I find is I work with a lot of electricians, tradesmen, plumbers, contractors, and oftentimes what they're doing is, again, running a mile a minute, directing him, her, and the other person of what to do, and they're working in their business, so they're pushing papers, they're making sales, they're getting things done, and they're kind of just going at it blindly with their fingers crossed, rather than actually taking a step back, coming up with maybe an annual plan, and then breaking it down to a biannual, a quarterly, a monthly, a weekly, a daily goal. A lot of the times what business owners are doing is just saying, okay, I need to make this amount, put food on the table, and I'm okay. And we become very stagnant. It's just what happens. We become very stagnant, and we get complacent, and we plateau as business owners. Whereas if you're working on your business, you're trying to incrementally grow. And each business is different, but maybe it's by 30%, 100%, 10%, 5%. But how are you doing that? What are your centers of influence? What are the pillars of your business that keep you standing, that keep you growing, that keep you strong? And how do you constantly grow year by year by year? I'm a big believer in personal development, and I think personal development plays directly into your business. Don't be stagnant. Work on your business rather than in your business constantly.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, one of the things that I try to get, especially small business owners, to think about is your business, no matter how small, should have, I spoke about this with nonprofits, but the same goes for profits. You should have a mission statement. You should have a
Right.
vision statement. You should have a purpose. You should have projections. Where do you want your business to be, and how much of your product you have to sell? How much
Yep.
time do you have to invest? How many clients or customers you need to get to that place? And you should have if you're early in a business, you should have a 6 month, 1 year, 18 month, 3 year, and 5 year projection. As you
Yeah.
move up, then you can space them out a little bit more. But really knowing where you're going, when you say people tend to work in their business,
Mhm.
I immediately thought of some of those people who kind of are like the fact that they just have all of this cash coming in,
Yep.
and they're not really thinking about where is this going to take the business, where is it going to grow. And then when it's time for the business to grow, they're in this who can help me stage, right?
Yep.
And then that's when they have to go into getting loans and struggling, or they end up, as you're saying, becoming stagnated, where they're not growing. And what happens with a business when you're not growing, you begin to constrict
Yep.
eventually, and yeah, you die. There's nothing else left.
Yeah.
So
You have to get
um,
bigger.
yeah, and I don't know if you see the same thing, but one of the things I see too is people being realistic when it comes to the type of business that they start. Um, and you talked about personal and professional development.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important because we really need to educate ourselves in whatever business that we're doing. It's not, oh, that's so easy. I can do that. and start a business and then get in the middle of it and not realize that there's certain certifications or certificates you needed, or there's certain, like in some states, you can just open any business. In some states, certain business have to be registered, especially with certain bureaus or certain agencies.
Yeah.
So really looking at what we need to grow. Now, in growing a business and being a person of color, especially, we also have to be a part of the community. And I want to kind of first of all destroy the fallacy that being a part of the community means you have to give stuff away for free. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it that way. But I do agree with some of the things that you've said in our prior conversations about that. So what are some ways that an established business can be a part of the community and not so much give back, because they might not have necessarily started in that community, but really be a source and a resource to them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just being able to add value. And so I'm a big believer in just giving back and being able to add value to the community in the way that I can, right? And so one of the ways that I can is through financial literacy, financial education, by being a spokesperson for business owners coming together, for people coming together and helping one another. That's what I'm a big proponent for, is having people of the community come together, speak up, and tell each other how we can help each other add value to not only one another's business, but one another's lives, right? So again, if I'm a tradesperson, a contractor, sure, it might not mean giving away a free job or a free contracting gig, but it might be educating on this is how you build a retaining wall. This is how you do this. This is how you do X, Y, and Z. And being able to educate and give back to those in your community, I think, is one of the most powerful things that we can't do enough of. I think free information and enough of good information is very powerful, because information is knowledge, and knowledge is wealth.
Yeah, most definitely. And, one thing, when you talk about value too, most of my fees are value based rather than hourly, right? So I do have hourly rates, but most of my fees are value based. So what's the project? What do you need? This is what I'm going to charge you. If it takes me an hour to do it, if it's a year-long project, this is what you're charged, and I'm going to give you everything that you need
Right.
for this project to work. It might not be that way. Value-based pricing works great in the community because a lot of times businesses, especially small businesses, they're so worried about the hourly rate that they don't really depend on the resource as much as they want to, because I'm scared to call you because you're going to charge me. I'm
Yeah.
scared to ask you to fill out that form because you're going to charge me. So one of the things I tell businesses that are more service oriented to, base it on value. Like if you want consulting services where you just want to ask me questions instead of me engaging you at an hourly rate, you pay X amount per month or per quarter or per year, and you can contact me as many hours as you need or for X amount of hours, and really create a relationship. And the community businesses are about relationships.
Exactly.
Even when we saw, and it's unfortunate, the riots and things that happen, and I don't condone violence at all. But one of the things that we did notice in the recent riots and the riots of the past is those businesses that had real relationships with the community were protected for the most part in some way, because it's, wait a minute, this is us. So it's not enough to just have people who are your customers that live in the community. It's really, are you attending the events? Are you investing? Are you sharing information? Are you, like, some of the things you said, are you really involved? Do you really care
Right.
about the community?
Yeah, don't
Now,
be a stranger.
yeah, yeah. And I appreciate you because when I opened up my office in Worcester, Massachusetts, one of the things that was hard for me was I don't want to have just this office in the community and I'm not a part of it. I wanted to, make sure that I can get involved, make sure that I'm a voice and all of that. So you know, for those listening, he is definitely someone who lives some of the suggestions that he's given because he connected me with ways to be a part of the community that we share in that space. What are I guess what are some other things that you would just really like people to know about financial literacy or entrepreneurism or saving or what have you?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think just people should really be aware of is Uncle Sam. Especially once you've got yourself a solid foundation and you start your saving strategy or your investment strategy or your business or your real estate, whatever it is, you always want to be aware of Uncle Sam, aware that you pay him, and aware of strategies to defer him, avoid him, and just really mitigate that whole risk of paying Uncle Sam, because there's plenty of ways to do that by talking to your local advisor, your local accountant, but you also want to consult your professionals as well. But Uncle Sam, I've seen him just deplete people's, I've spoken to people with millions of dollars to people who don't have enough to take care of themselves, and Uncle Sam will go ahead and ruin a lot of people's plans, a lot of people's assets, and a lot of people's goals if not planned properly from the beginning. So my number one takeaway for everyone is usually to avoid Uncle Sam at your greatest in your greatest ability. That would be my number one takeaway.
Yeah, and I no longer do personal taxes as much as I used to. I do it for a select group of clients that I've had for years, and I do some business taxes or whatever. But I don't consider myself a tax accountant like I used to.
Okay.
But the extent that I know you're correct is because I did a lot of IRS audit situations where
Yeah.
people put things on their tax returns and have no record of it.
Yeah.
Wait until the end of the year and kind of, oh yeah, I think I paid for this and I think I spent money on that and I
Right.
think I did this, that, and the other, and not really worry about. They're thinking, oh, what have I put in? What have I done since the last time I did my taxes? No, you have a fiscal year. They
Right.
have a calendar year. There's how are you getting your cash in? You know, and various other things that people have to think about that really impact. Like I said, even when they're helping their kids earn money, are they under the threshold? The tax deductions or tax consequences of college and savings plans, and oh yeah, did you borrow from your 401k? Did you borrow from other retirement plans? All of these different types of things have tax consequences. Some of the
Exactly.
consequences are for the better. Some work out pretty well. Others can. The timing can also matter too. There's some people that say, look, it's. I know it's November and you want to shop for December, but it would really be great if you hold this off until January. That way, you have an entire year to offset your gains and your losses.
Right.
Um, One of the businesses that I see really need to focus on this now is those that own real estate.
Yeah.
Not really paying attention to all of the work that they do on the property. What a portion of the rent is going to upkeep if there's a Section 8 situation or some type of government financing. just all of the different things, just kind of going about doing it. Even if you have a property manager, that's deductible, the fees you pay to the property manager. A lot of people don't realize, they get mad, oh, I don't want to pay somebody to do my taxes. Well, you pay it the first year, the second year you write it off. I
Right.
don't want to pay somebody for financial advising. Well, you pay it the first year, the second year you write it off, or at the end of the year, however. But so there's, I think it goes back to that discussion on understanding, excuse me, instead of acting out of fear when it comes to Uncle Sam and paying taxes and saying, I'm scared of it, so I'm going to stay away from it, really just digging in and embracing it as much as possible. And just, again, going back to what you said, if you don't know, ask somebody.
Right. Ask the pros. Ask the pros. There's plenty of advice to go around. Paid advice is good advice. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I believe. You know.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I started doing these shows is because I want the people, especially those that follow me, to be able to see people of color as experts and see people of color as resources. I hear so many times in a community where you try to say, hey, I need an expert in this, and they will pick out a certain race or a certain culture other than their own and say, hey, that person's an expert because they're Jewish or because they're a male or because they're white or because of this or that, and things that really have nothing to do with that person's knowledge or understanding. When there are people that look like them and who are accessible to them right there.
Yeah.
And so part of spending the black dollar is not just in retail establishments, but using black pros and black experts as resources in our businesses and in our financial decision making.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If that's what, especially a lot of the times people want to work with those, like you said, that they're familiar with, that they feel comfortable with. And I say there's nothing wrong with that at all. Um, One thing I will say, Dr. Tony, that you had touched on was timing. And before we let everyone go, I would tell everyone one thing that we should be aware of in timing is that we're in some of actually the lowest tax brackets we've ever seen from a history standpoint, if we actually look at it. And so, irregardless of your political views, who you like, who you don't like, I would tell people to, again, go back, educate yourselves, and be aware of the timing that we have for your income taxes. They're only going to go up. So take advantage of the time frame that we do have right now, because you might not realize it, but we are in some of the lowest tax brackets that we've been in a historical standpoint.
Right. Yeah, we definitely are. There are a lot more tax loopholes. There are a lot more tax breaks out there. And what makes it unique about where we are now, they're not necessarily so much for the individual. It's more for those that have businesses, those that are saving, those that are investing, those that are doing things with their money. So you actually can become more personally profitable and more sustainable in your business by during this time period.
Yeah,
Now, again, it's not really about your political leaning, because some of these, what people don't understand is sometimes tax breaks and tax things can happen in one administration that rolls over into the next. There might be changes, and it takes a long time. So it's not about whether the current tax situation attaches to any administration. The
right.
point is, it's available to you.
Exactly.
I talk to musicians all the time where I'm like, wow, you're not deducting, your tuning of your instruments and distance to gigs and all of that kind of stuff.
Simple.
Traveling nurses, truck drivers, and all of
Yeah.
these types of things. One of the things that I work with before we close is also supporting business valuations for when people want to sell their businesses.
It's
So
great.
I want to just close it on this thought as well. When we talk about being protecting our money and being really sturdy and sustainable with our business, also consider your cybersecurity aspect of it. Protecting your customers, protecting their information. Because I just actually attended a seminar on this, but one of the things that we're looking at as those in the valuation arena, one of the things that we're looking at is the 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 value that of your business that's connected to your security. So if somebody comes along and they can steal your client list, your business might only now be have worth half of what it was.
Right.
If you have a software business or something like that and you didn't develop everything in a safe space, your product, your asset might not be worth as much as it was if you did keep it securely. So really think about, protecting your client data as an asset as part of your business. So I know that's not directly related to the things that we talk about, but I want to mention that. And also, if you are adopting, there are a lot of tax breaks for adopting, and that you should definitely see a financial professional such as Mr. Davis, because you have a child, but there's tax breaks related to it. There's savings plans that you can do. There's education plans. There's a lot that you can do when you are a adoptive parent. So I just wanted to throw those two out there. I've been putting your email up throughout, so I'm just going to put it up there one more time. Anybody who wants to reach out to him, his email is up there. He's very knowledgeable and very invested in the community, all communities, not just community of color, but all communities. He's really invested. So I definitely suggest, if you want to know more about financial literacy for nonprofits, look up my last episode. In the last episode, I spoke with nonprofit tax professional Robert Jones, and he has a lot of information on that. And look out, because we have another one coming on Thursday. So I really look forward to continuing these talks, and thank you so much for doing this for me and the audience, and for just being available.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Toni. I love what you're doing here. This is a wonderful platform. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to seeing the next episodes to come.
All right, terrific. Thank you again. And like I said, anybody who wants to reach out, this is his email address, and you can reach me also. And I had mine up for a while, but oh, here it is. Info at AskDrTonia.com. My company is Revelatus Consulting, as well as I am the Institute for Excellence in Social Responsibility. I work out in Newark, New Jersey with Sunday's Hope. That's a nonprofit there run by Loretta Stevens. I am with the Worcester County and Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women. And I do a lot, so we're going to talk about a lot in all of these different episodes. So I really thank you for joining us today, and definitely look forward to the next episode. Thank you, everyone.
That was great. That was